All right, everyone. Beijing Biden intends to return to the bad old days of the Obama tax hikes. Keep in mind, it's funny to see the response to that, and people are like, well, it's not the end of the world or anything. It just reverts the tax rate to what it was before 2018. Yes, the marginal tax rate and capital gains will simply be reverting to what they were from, I believe, 2012 on, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's wonderful. So in other words, you can look for more offshoring, more middle-class business losses, more burdens on people who are rich on paper. See, here's the problem, and this is being lost in translation. Number one, this capital gains will apply to crypto sales among people, entrepreneurs that are investing in that. So this will depress crypto and have wide-ranging economic impact on that. Number two, if I drag the top marginal tax rate up, am I not adjusting the other rates accordingly? The Trump tax cuts lowered taxes for the vast majority of Americans. This is something people need to understand. The MSM's wall of propaganda that was deliberately designed to prevent Trump from being popular lied flat out to the people. And this is something that later on was largely admitted to. Yeah, of course, this was not entirely accurate in reporting. What happened is that the vast majority of Americans paid less taxes. When they were talking about tax returns, it was funny, because if you have less taxes being withheld, of course, the final return will be less. This happened to some people on the bottom echelon, and they were all frenetic about it, but they had less withheld, and that's what they weren't. Why did my tax return go from $2,000 to only $1,500? Well, there's $500 less to return to you, because you never had it withheld in the first place. You kept that money during week after week or bi-weekly. And people didn't understand that, and they flipped out. Entrepreneurs. People, if you had self-employed income like me, the Trump tax cuts have been a massive boon. I don't want to know how many more thousands of dollars I'd be paying per year in federal taxes for them to just go bomb people anyway. That's the other thing. I find it funny that anyone would want to up taxes when the money is just going to be misused. Do you think it's actually going to trickle down to the poor? High taxes are essentially the real trickle-down. The idea is, well, the government, which is at the very top, is going to water everybody else at the bottom. No, it's not. That money will get squandered. So when you say that we're returning to the marginal tax rate, and this is only for people who are making, $10 million or more a year, it's a great deal of money. That's perfectly fine. The problem is you will have to adjust the other marginal rates. All of the other margins were decreased too. I think that, the second margin I think went down by 2 points, the third margin by 3, the fourth went down a point or two, and so it wasn't just people at the top getting a tax break. Yeah, the top marginal rate was dropped. Capital gains was massively slashed. What this caused when Trump imposed that new tax rate was capital flowing back to the United States. See, this is what Biden doesn't want. All of the billionaire scuzzballs that Biden does business with, that have bought off our Congress, are multinationalists. So they don't care if capital flows elsewhere. They can put it somewhere else. This is an attempt to screw the American middle class more than anybody. Who do you think works at these companies? It's not all just... The idea that Bernie Sanders has implanted in some of these morons' mind is that 99% of people that go to work for a corporation, any corporation at all except when they donate to his causes, by the way, like a Al Sharpton-esque fucking mafioso shakedown, that 99% of those people are an inch from poverty. They're the huddled masses, that there's no middle class. And while Bernie would love to eliminate the middle class, because people with that level of mobility tend to reject socialism, that's just not accurate. There's a very large chunk of those people who are well above the lower echelons of the working or lower class. There are plenty of entrepreneurs. Look, again, I've been able to invest in other things, specifically because I've been saving thousands of dollars on my federal taxes, because there's an up to 20% write-off of qualifying income up to $100K. This is a big boon for self-employed people to offset the fact that you right up front have to pay 15%. If you are self-employed and you make $100, you pay $15 on that. Just to be aware. But now that whole $100 has a 20% qualifying write-off. So the cap is considerably higher at the point in which you pay any significant taxes if it's self-employed income. Over $100K, I think they phase that 15% out and it no longer applies. Which is also nice, although it's kind of the reverse of common sense. Well, once you get into the upper middle class, then we'll stop penalizing you. Up until then, you have to scrabble your way forward. It can be difficult at times to deal with the tax code. But the Trump tax cuts were a good thing. They spurred growth. The unemployment began to reduce to the point where it was at a near all-time low among most demographics under Trump's tax plan. This was under Trump. The only reason that was undone was because of the inept COVID response. And no, it wasn't COVID itself. Diseases don't cause you to become unemployed. Governments that lock down your business and drive it under make you unemployed. So when he says, whoa, we're going to return to the marginal tax rate that we had before, but don't worry, we're just reversing it to the 2010s. Yes, but the 2010s weren't a great time economically. Yes, there was a recovery. It was largely lackluster. Corporations, yeah, they were rehiring people, but they were at lower wages for fewer hours, and they were lower level positions. A chunk of the middle and especially the lower middle class, people who were no longer poor or even like working class, they're kind of in the middle echelon, but on the margins, they got shoved back down. This is millions of people. And that's the result of a redesign of the economy under the same Obama that, let me remind you, said, well, 7% unemployment structural now, it can't go any lower. What do you expect me to do? Trump managed it. Oh, well, we've got to get used to dealing with having less relative wealth. We kept crawling on ahead. Capital came flooding back on shore. Businesses started hiring more workers at the middle income level, as opposed to simply hiring more low-wage workers. There's a big difference economically between the impact of these things, too. And again, there are people that on paper are rich. Like when Bernie Sanders talks about his wealth tax, he's being insane. There are farmers that on paper have tens of millions of dollars in land holdings, if it's really good arable land, but they pay a huge amount just to put the seed on it. They're in debt every single season hoping that the rains come, and then being told by the federal government they have to leave half their land fallow anyway. No, you have to grow soybeans on 20% of your land. You have to grow more corn so we can pump it into gasoline and into people's gullets so that they get sick and die, eating corn syrup as filler in literally every goddamn other food product. Look at your veggie burgers sometime and ask yourself if it is really healthier than real meat. By the way, Biden apparently taking aim at red meat too, like complaining that beef production is driving climate change. Fucking ignore climate change. It's a bunch of alarmist nonsense. They know it too. That's why he was serving burgers to the Japanese Prime Minister literally last week, dude. He's so concerned about it. Let the rich eat the bug burgers then and sell off their private planes and their third and fourth homes. Let them live like normal people. You trust me, it takes 100 of you to have a carbon footprint the same as Al Gore. Tell the hypocrites to take a hike. That's about all. Peace out.